hosts, the Bay Area Brawler, Skylar Greenberg, and your Colonial champion, Sean McCoy. Welcome to the Court-Martail Podcast!
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again to another edition of the Court-Martail Podcast, the podcast made by two great wrestling fans who love great professional wrestling, and every so often we get some. And today we're going to be going through Payback 2023. I am your Colonial champion, Sean McCarty, breaking it down, mixing it up, flipping it up, and slamming it to the canvas. And by my side, as always, waiting to backslap tag his way into the conversation, the man of the hour, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour. He is the Bay Area Brawler himself, Skylar Greenberg. How you doing, buddy?
Not only am I going to backslap tag you, but I'm going to backslap tag you while wearing a Pittsburgh Penguins jersey.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you're representing the Steelers.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get to all of that. So, Payback 2023. Before we introduce the elephant in the room, let's get our overall impressions into the equation. Sky, it's a B show, but for a B show, it wasn't too bad.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, Payback is a B.
Yeah, it is. The Biker Taker would back you up in that statement.
But yeah, I will say that this was a good effort after SummerSlam. Like, it needed to continue the energy, but it didn't feel like SummerSlam.
Well, no, nor should it have. But I did kind of find it kind of interesting that this was basically a Raw pay-per-view, almost exclusively, with the exception of Ray and Theory, and
I mean, at
and
this
LA
point,
Knight
who
and the
cares
Miz, I
about
suppose.
the brand split?
Yeah, I mean, like that even because that's gonna matter for somebody else later, but we'll get to that in a second. But overall, this show could have been one where they just kind of like half-assed it and half-assed the booking, and they made it. Well, let me put it this way. Skylar, in the past, in the Vince McMahon era, this would have been what you and I would call a one-match show.
I mean, that's basically what Extreme Rules 2022 was.
Right.
Which happened the same time last year.
Right. I think that you could go back to a number of matches on this show and not only enjoy yourself, but actually understand and what's going on. Even though there's a lot that's drawn out and milked because of WWE formatting, there was nothing on this show that was necessarily offensive to me or necessarily bad in my eyes, which is rare for a B show. So I really do, firm handshakes all around to the WWE, at least from my opinion.
Yes, although again, as with any WWE show, the format is terrible. Kevin Dunn sucks at his job.
Yep.
Michael Cole is the mayor of Weenie Shire.
Yeah, and yeah, all of those givens in our WWE review proof, bring you back to 10th grade geometry, and that's really what it is. And those always come with the territory. None of those are ever going to change. I think you and I have kind of come to terms with that.
Pretty much.
Yeah, but speaking of things like Michael Cole that we are just stuck with and will not go away no matter how full of weenies they are, we got one more guy to talk about, the editor-in-chief. Roll his intro, baby. Actually, you do it. It's you, so you do it. Roll your own intro.
It's time for JoshAgeddon's Notes of the Week. It's time for his Notes of the Week. Oh, yeah.
Greetings, I'm not saying that. Or if you're for a film, greetings, C units. JoshAgeddon here. Oh, we're past 3 minutes. All right, I can say it. Greetings, cunts. JoshAgeddon here with my... That's right. Well, you have to make sure you get past that plane and then, you're free range. JoshAgeddon here with my world-renowned and often mind-melting and life-choice-questioning notes on the WWE's latest pay-per-view. I refuse to call it a PLE because F you. Payback 2023 and ain't that a bitch? You were unfortunately late to the punch, JoshAgeddon. Skylar had you beat.
I mean, to be fair, he is the bitch.
No, Skylar, take the win. Take the W. Take your victory lap while I'm giving it to you.
Okay, fine. Let me be my Nick Jackson impression. Woo!
There you go. While everyone was cavorting and wailing just like Skylar at this moment, and gnashing teeth over the lack of excitement over this card, I personally had no doubt that this show would at the very least be decent, because WWE hasn't had a bad pay-per-view all year. I had faith, you heathens. That's right, I said faith. Vince literally wrestled God in 2006. Yeah, I remember that. How could that not end the theological debate once and for all? As for Payback specifically, I enjoyed the show. Also, I'm currently at Walmart getting Andy's car's oil change as I write this, so forgive me if my notes are discombobulated at points. Although it would be strange if they were ever not fucked up looking. So, was there a pre-show, Sky?
Who cares?
Yeah, and JoshAgeddon would concur with that because he said the pre-show should go back to its own goddamn country. Which is where, by the way?
Yes.
Which country specifically? Well, so our first contest is the one where you cannot go back to your own country because you can't leave the cage. If you do, you win. It is Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch in what was purported to be, and what seems like it was, the final match in this feud between Becky and Trish, and of course Zoe Stark got involved. What were your thoughts on this match, Skylar?
This should have been the match that was at SummerSlam over Ronda and Shayna.
Come on, man. That match was a classic.
Listen, comedy aside from how terrible that match was, that only you like.
You're right. I'm not disputing that. Because it was abysmal. But it was hilariously abysmal. That's all.
Whatever. The point is that despite however bad or good that match was, this should have been at SummerSlam, although in hindsight, had this been at SummerSlam, it would not have gotten this amount of time.
It wouldn't have gotten this amount of time, and I don't know if it would have gotten this amount of reaction either. I mean, this crowd in Pittsburgh, it was kind of up and down with them, what they were feeling and how into things they were. But they really got behind this one, and they didn't want to. I think, and they didn't. But Trish and Becky basically gave them no choice, as I thought these two did a tremendous job. And Becky coming out with a serious tone and like serious clothing, that's what immediately set this different from, and why I was actually interested in the match to start out, because I was kind of dreading it, I won't lie, even though I had no reason to. But when Becky came out and was not like doing the flamboyant stuff and was just serious face, like, I've got a steel cage match against Trish Stratus, I gotta be serious, I knew that they were gonna deliver on this night.
I think part of it is that, like, we have admittedly said this run that Becky has been on recently has not been very good. Like, her matches have not been what they were before. So she needed to have a good match.
Yeah. And likewise with Trish. Trish is great doing promos on her own. She's a great in-ring heel, as she demonstrated so expertly tonight. I've loved all the heat that she got. She did a wonderful job with it. But she is terrible at reciting their lines and doing the modern style promo that they have. And that has really hurt the feud overall, even though I think Trish being there and definitely her in-ring work have shown that she's still got it just as much as she's had, well, or nearly as much. She hasn't lost as much of a step as people may have thought she has.
Yes, like, we've bemoaned in the past the fact that Legends wrestlers are a shell of themselves, and they can't wrestle the style that they...
What?
Lita, Matt Hardy, Ric Flair for so long.
Jeff Hardy,
even Edge to an extent.
He was slowing down definitely towards the end there. You could kind of tell.
It helps that, again, Trish is all. She's still smooth in the ring. Now, let's be clear about something. Michael Cole is, in fact, the emperor of Weenie Town.
He needs to come out in a full-blown kimono, like a gigantic, like having emperors, like one of those big old fancy hats, and sit there. That would be great. I'd love to see that.
Because they were setting up a Tiffany Stratton thing at ringside, and Michael Cole talked to her earlier today, and Corey Graves like, you talked to her? And like, well, my journalistic integrity forced me to.
You know what was really funny as well during that same thing? If you looked at the dude to the left of Tiffany Stratton, that dude was looking at her like, dude, who the hell is this chick? He had no idea who she was. It was so funny. He was just mad confused. But
I mean, the problem is that nowadays the wrestlers look like fans, so.
Yeah, that's a completely different story altogether. And
right.
But there was a lot of good stuff when Trish was standing on advantage, like having the hair pull with the foot on the back, and Trish, she knew how, even the stuff that she said, in the match, as she was just slapping Becky around and throwing her into the cage, the spine buster. My God, that spine buster.
Arn Anderson was proud of that spine buster.
I know, that was intense, and she did a great job. I love.
Would you say that Trish Stratus is a better heel than a babyface?
100%. Yeah, always. Yeah, I've always liked Trish better when she was a heel. I actually, when they had to flip, and Trish Stratus had to, when Lita. Oh, no, I guess Lita was a babyface at that time still anyway, but Lita, when they had their main event, and Lita really messed up her knee, and Trish then had to go on and basically be a heel after that, and when she had that WrestleMania 20 thing with Christian and Jericho and all of that, like, Trish is just better as a heel. She is, and I think she leans into it really well, and she also is good at kind of overselling for, the babyface when she's making a comeback too. I think Trish's selling is very good.
It is. I will give praise to Becky Lynch. Like, a lot of her moves were a lot more focused and tighter. She was doing better in the ring than she has been in the past.
Yeah, and I do think that, like, Becky and Trish's match at Saudi Arabia was pretty good as well. These two do have a chemistry. I will give credit to that. I think they do it. Like, I really liked they did some more creative spots in this one too, like the bridge to the leg drop, where Trish, did the, Michael Cole called it the Matrix, but it's just a bridge, and then Becky leg dropped her after that. But I will say this, speaking of leg drops, Becky Lynch's top rope leg drop, where the lady's hanging over the top rope, is getting natural selection levels of bad. It's true.
So it's not just me.
It's not just you. It's just bad. I really do wish that she would stop it. And then for the first of like 3 times on the show, Corey Graves gave us the good old fashioned 6-word phrase, "What do I have to do?" He said it 3 or 4 times on the night. I'm like, come on, man. But what I loved about this match, and what I loved about this whole show, is that there was quite a number of references I did not expect to come from places in this show. Namely, the Widow's Peak that Trish did, and then they actually mentioned Victoria.
Yeah, and they mentioned Victoria and Lita in the first ever cage match with women on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, and then Trish did then Becky did the Twist of Fate, and that was another good little spot there. And then this started moving along. But can we talk for a second about Trish's head?
I mean, Becky Lynch caved it in pretty good.
Yeah, she got a good potato in somewhere on Trish. And you could see the welt form. But I thought that added to this. That added to the intensity, the fact that it felt like they were really kind of in a personal struggle. That was quite good. I appreciated that.
One of the big things about Payback and the theme of Payback is that it should be about like revenge, heated feuds, battles against people who really do not like each other. And almost every match had some form of that tonight.
Yeah, it's for. Can you imagine that, Sky? That they're actually like keeping with the theme of their pay-per-view, and not just a gimmick show. Like, oh, there's Money in the Bank. Here comes some gimmick matches. Like, there's actually some Payback on Payback.
Yep, there was.
And that's some. I appreciate that. And then we get further on that bulldog from the top rope that Trish did. That looked like it hurt Trish.
I mean, she did land on her tailbone, as Corey said, but more accurately, she landed on her ass.
Yeah, she sure did. And then I loved this idea with the leg trap where Trish, her head slammed on the top of the cell when they were on the top. And they were kind of fighting there, and Trish got her legs hooked. But it took forever for her to get unhooked.
I mean, I'd rather her be secure than fall.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, here's the thing. It didn't matter because the crowd by this point was way into this match.
Oh, yeah, the crowd was hot all night. I will give Pittsburgh credit for being a great crowd.
Yeah, well, they had it when the moments called for it, and I think these ladies deserved it. The superplex was great. The manhandle slam was not.
Which one?
Yes. But I am glad it was a pinfall that did it instead of escaping the cage, even though they teased that throughout the match. That it actually was just a definitive 1, 2, 3 that got it, which I think helped.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The point of a steel cage match is to keep people out, right?
Right, and I know that they used the little, they kind of wormed their way around that with Trish trying to escape the cage, and that's usually how it happens with cage matches. Sadly.
Yeah, and then Zoe Stark comes in, gets involved, and it's basically 2-on-1. To me, this is the main thing I hate about WWE cage matches, is that there's no roof and that the door can be opened and closed.
Yeah.
So realistically speaking, anybody that wants to interfere can interfere.
Could, yeah. Yeah.
So the referees are ballless and dickless and whatever. I just can we get a cage where there's a top and the door is closed and locked?
Well, but in the defense of WWE here, which is not something I do very frequently, when was the last time we had a steel cage match? The last one I remember is the silly one with Braun Strowman and Shane McMahon. That can't be the last cage match we've had. But that's the last one I remember. But truthfully, it's the first one they've done in a while. So I'm not going to fault them for the fact that they have those rules set in place because that was what their cage matches were to begin with. I agree with your point, Sky. It's a dumb thing that WWE has done, and that's an old McMahonism that I wouldn't mind seeing disappear. But if you're going to go with what you've established, my problem is that now you're running out of means to not do that when you've got this stipulation in place. Because that's the only way you're going to get people, you're always going to get the interference into the ring somehow. You know what I mean? It's like, and that feels like now it's you've backed yourself into the corner with you've done every finish known to man, even though you are doing them infrequently. This was something we've kind of seen before with cage matches, is it not?
It is. Anybody can get into the cage, anybody can help out another person that's in the cage. Thankfully, it didn't, adversely affect the match and people were still into it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it
wasn't Braun Strowman throwing Kevin Owens off the top of the cage and losing the match but winning the war, question mark.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I completely forgot about that match. Wow. That was one of the all-time awful endings to a match. Yeah. Wow. that was, what was that, early pandemic?
No, that was way 2017, 2018.
Was it that early? Oh man, I remember that was nonsensical. That was ridiculous. Man.
Again, like I said, to be honest, your mind forgets a lot of things, and that was 2018 Extreme Rules to answer your question.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, Sky, that's why we keep you around with the laptop in front of you. And,
yeah, stats man.
That's right.
Oh, how do you feel about the Zoe Stark turning on Trish thing?
This, to me, says to me that Trish might just be done. I mean, maybe she'll work something with Zoe Stark, but I kind of get, this kind of felt like a finale for Trish more than it did like something that's going to lead to that pairing destroying each other, because it's only been around, what, 2 months?
Saudi Arabian show, so May, so it's been like 4.
Okay, 4 months. But still, it's only been 4 months. It's been the same feud in that 4 months. And now they're done. So that tells me that they're not going to feud, that was the feud. And
I think part of it also is that, like, at this point, like, Zoe Stark doesn't need Trish anymore. It was good to have her originally so they could, like, do the student versus teacher thing and, like, have Zoe learn from Trish on and off screen.
yeah, oh, definitely. I think it was valuable having her around. I just don't know if Trish is gonna want to be around anymore for a little while. And I don't know if, like you said, Sky, like, who else does she face? Like, where does she go? I don't want her to face Rhea Ripley. Like, I don't think that's necessary, especially because she's a heel. You know, who do we have as babyface women that she could fight?
Asuka.
Yeah.
Bianca Belair.
Bianca maybe.
But again, I think this was good for Zoe Stark to get the experience with Trish, and now we'll see if she can sink or swim on her own. But sinking or swimming, shall we go to Joshua's notes?
Yeah, let's see if he's even treading water here. I love women, I promise.
Sure you do.
This is a good start. And here before the court, Marshall Podcast, I give evidence to that claim. This, in my opinion, was the best match of the night. Maybe the weekend, but I hear that we don't talk about the kindergarten jizz napkin show around these parts no more. That is a fact, folks. You want to hear about that? We'll have a podcast about it soon. So fuck them. But seriously, despite this feud sucking ass for the most part, and that's on WWE, not Trish and Becky, this was great. It's amazing to see Trish doing this at such an intense level in her 40s. Also, that fucking goose egg on her forehead looked nasty. Hope she's okay. Becky more than held up her end of the bargain, even though I would love it if she would stop loudly calling spots. Yes, I agree. That took me out of the match momentarily, but that was pretty much my only problem with the bout. Other than that, it absolutely shat on my expectations, and I enjoyed it. So, there you go. JoshAgeddon with high praise for the women here, and it was well deserved.
I don't know if it was the match of the night, but it was certainly one of the matches of the night.
It was one of the matches of the night. And so then we get The Miz in the ring with somebody. I could not see him.
It was just a shirt, jorts, and a hat.
That's right. And he was the host. And
the
John,
Invisible Man, as Jim Cornette likes to call him.
That's right. As John Cena comes down and he gets the crowd going, and he panders a little bit to Pittsburgh, and he says, I'm going to be the special referee for LA Knight and The Miz. And everyone goes, yay, but what? But yay, I guess.
And then The Miz comes down and says, why are you pandering to people? I didn't expect this from you. And I'm just like, that's every John Cena promo.
I'm like, really? You really didn't expect this from Miz? But I will say this, John and The Miz have chemistry. Back and forth.
They better after working together for 20 years.
Well, but I mean, like, they do now. You can see they bounce off each other very well and very quickly. And it's kind of nice to see, especially considering I never liked any of their matches. But they still did. I mean, the last match they had was the match where John Cena proposed to Nikki Bella, so so in any case, so Miz, they do this whole bit where Cena's like, teach me, sensei, you are host extraordinaire. And Miz goes like, well, you have to razzle them, dazzle them, and make an impact and get involved and do that. And John Cena goes, all right, well, great, I'm going to be the referee. And he's like, no, wrong. and then Cena, you know, they go, yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah. And then, of course, does the fingers. And out comes LA Knight, who got a bigger pop than Cena did. You cannot deny it. This guy is over like Rover. He didn't get the biggest pop of the night, though.
No, that went to the table.
Well, that went to the crowd pumping in the noise of the table, but no. I meant for people on the night, I think that there was one more person who had a little bit more to him. But...
Well, that's fine. LA Knight can be one of the most popular people, and that's still good.
But still, considering what LA Knight had to endure this year, the fact that he is this insanely over is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, full marks to him for getting this over. And so we have this match, and LA Knight versus The Miz. What did you think about this match?
So, I like the fact that this wasn't just straight, like, squash match, because that would not have been cool. I enjoyed the fact that this was a back-and-forth match.
Me too.
The problem I had was that it was just John Cena was too distracting as the referee.
Yeah, that's kind of what I came out with it, too. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read to you the first line that I wrote down, and then I'm going to read to you the last line that I wrote down, and then we'll talk about the middle. First line I wrote down was, this is a good rub for LA Knight, but does he need Cena to be the referee for this one? And the last thing I wrote was, good match, but I really don't know if Cena helped or hurt this. He was just there. He was almost... I don't know how to describe it. He didn't do a ton of officiating. He didn't really get hugely involved. You know, there was a little tease of Cena and LA Knight where LA Knight was, you know, like, hey, I'll whip your ass any day. And that was really like the story of the match, and Miz kind of became the third wheel in his own matchup story, kind of like how it was with WrestleMania 27, also involving John Cena.
John Cena just taking away the heat of that youngster, The Miz.
Yeah, and I mean, it didn't hurt LA Knight any in this, because he still got the pops, and he still got everyone to go with him. But...
Yeah, but here's the thing about anybody who is a special guest referee or whatever. Because inherently they're not a regular referee, they don't just blend into the background. Right. They become a part of the match, story, whatever. And part of the problem is that if they're not a regular referee and don't regularly do refereeing, they can instantly become an issue. There were points in this match where John Cena actually got in front of the camera, or in front of a camera angle that Kevin Dunn shot to.
Yeah, and that's, you know, and to the defense of Kevin Dunn, sometimes you don't know that until Cena's, you know, right there, and he's like, oh, son of a bitch, and I gotta cut that. And, you know, and that was the thing, I was trying to figure out on this. There was one thing I didn't like about this match. I will say this, Miz's punches are not terrible. They're not great, but they're not terrible.
You would hope after working for 20 years as a wrestler that his punches would not be terrible.
Well, what are Kenny Omega's punches like?
Or Shane McMahon.
Yeah, so there you go. And, but here's the thing I had the problem with. They do the slamming of the head of Miz into the announce table. And both of the commentary team is basically told to lay out and not say anything, even though they're slamming and they're going, yeah, slamming, yeah, slamming, yeah. And not a single person, you know, not to even add up to the urgency of, oh my God, he's slamming us on the desk. He's slamming it right on our disc. And it was just, no, it was dead silence for that. I'm like, really? Really, Kevin? Or whoever told the commentators to lay out? That might have been Hunter. That might have been a Triple H decision, but I didn't like it. I don't like it at all. And it reminded me, and I don't know, this is a very specific reference, and I don't know if I remember what it was. 2013. I don't remember what the pay-per-view was, but there was a table spot that was done, and it was Cole and JBL and and King, and they basically did a table spot right there. Everybody lays out, and they're sitting there, and all of a sudden King's just like, "Come on!" And they all just stand there, no urgency, like there's a man just his body's broken at his feet, and King just like half-assed said something, and it just reminded me of this moment. And it hashtag bad formatting.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But still, there was nothing wrong with this match. I did like the big back body drop over the barricade that was timed perfectly to land everybody flat. And I thought that was a pretty impressive spot. But I don't really have much else to say about this match. I liked the trip leg into the kind of code breaker that was kind of meh in execution.
Right, but then LA Knight does that beautiful DDT with the ropes.
Yeah, which, if that was the corkscrew DDT, is this the one that that Cole called a swinging neck breaker?
Yes.
Yeah.
Called it a swinging.
Yeah, I remember that.
Called it a swinging neck breaker before going to swinging DDT.
Yeah. There was another surprise reference as, I don't remember what the context was, maybe just in speaking of LA Knight, but Corey Graves said, made a reference to Dangerous Danny Davis. And I was like, okay, because, Danny Davis was one of the guys who owned OVW alongside Cornette in the early days. But you know what? Before that DDT, that mad DDT that Miz did you see him kick the air over the knee of LA Knight?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw it. And I did like right before he did, or he tried to do, like right before that corkscrew DDT, as Miz was trying to do the skull crushing finale, he just mouthed massive balls, and he went to hit it. That did make me laugh.
I just want to know the fact that, like, tiny balls is still over as an insult a year and a half later.
You know what? And the fact that Miz is still running with it, I respect it.
It's not even him. It's just the fans that are running with it.
But you know what? That's why he's going with it. It's like he's still taking it, and he's taking that on the chin, man. He is taking it on the chin. God bless him. He is. I have a lot of respect for the Miz, honestly, for how far he's come. Even though his work is still kind of meh, as far as its execution.
And his face is like a frog.
And his face is somewhat froggish, but that doesn't even bother me as much. This was a good match. The right result happened. The finish was good with LA Knight hitting all his big shit and getting the BFT. And Cena was there. Although I will say, just another knock on Kevin Dunn. They do the replays, and they do the replay right before the BFT where he hits the the elbow and gets him up. And he hits the elbow and gets him up, and he's right about to hit the BFT. And then they cut to like 2 seconds before that so they could show the same footage of him hitting the BFT. It's like, just roll the one footage. Like, you don't need to cut there. Just roll the whole thing then. If you're still rolling the whole package, like, why reset that? But in any case, it was a good match.
I do have a question for you.
I have an answer.
So, what is your feeling about John Cena being here, obviously because of the actor strike, and at least being committed to WWE for 2 months?
Well, what's he going to do?
I wonder, because they did do a little tease of a Cena LA Knight match, which I don't know.
How would you... The thing is, who's heel? Or do you just try to run that as a blockbuster babyface match?
I've also heard rumors of a Cena-Cody Rhodes match.
Yeah, which would also be confusing, considering who's heel. Because they're not turning Cena. There's no way he's turning after all this time.
Right, I don't think you have to turn anybody. You could just do babyface matchup or dream match.
Yeah, but does that help Cody along to beating Roman Reigns?
Well, Cody's next thing has been teased already, which we'll see how it goes. I just feel like Cena's here, but you're right. What do they do with him?
Yeah, and I mean, if they're doing the screwball comedy with John, then fine. Because, like, I liked his little cameo later, too. That did kind of crack me up a little bit. To have him do, like, the shtick with the tie and the suit. We'll get to that later, but, like, it was, we'll see what he does. We'll see if he even wrestles. We don't even know if he's gonna. I mean, maybe he will, maybe he won't. But
I'm sure Joshua will enjoy it.
But would you like to hear what he thought about this whole deal? Oh, yeah, before we get to that, I did love the exchange of words between LA Knight and John Cena, where they kind of, like, they were pretty intense at each other right there at the end, but he says, all right, fair enough, you won clean tonight, shake my hand, damn it, and he was like, all right, fair enough. And that was it. But you could tell that they left things kind of open between them just in case they felt like they wanted to go down that route. And I'm all for that. I'm all for leaving things open like that and giving some teases, but not necessarily giving too much of the plan. Or if that's even, it might be a wild goose chase.
That, and also the fact that two people who are baby faces are not necessarily friends. Like, not every baby face is going to be friends with another baby face.
Right. And that's fine. That's the nature of WWE, and that's the nature of a competitive locker room. Now would you like to hear what LA Knight versus Mizaruni JoshAgeddon had to say?
Sure.
This match was weird. For some reason, John Cena was here as guest ref. I guess John can't help but remind Miz of his place in life, being the third wheel background noise of what the important people are doing. I think Miz should...
Whoa, God.
I mean, tell him when he's telling lies. I think Miz should dump Maurice for Asuka, since they have so much in common. Maurice is way too hot.
In the Mixed Match Challenge?
Maurice, what's that?
Weren't The Miz and Asuka in the Mixed Match Challenge as a tag team?
Were they? You tell me, Mr. Statman.
Yeah, they did. They beat Charlotte and Bobby Roode in the finals.
Wow. The Mixed Match Challenge. I totally forgot about that.
We're just bringing back all the old school.
I know, these are deep cuts. These are deep mental scar cuts. Anyway, as for the match itself, it was fine. I'm over watching Miz wrestle, but again, this was for LA Knight. It's weird seeing WWE actually start to get behind and push somebody that the crowd organically grew on like a fungus, but I like it. And I like that Cena gave him the rub so Knight and Pittsburgh could squee. Although WWE constantly labeling Cena as the greatest of all time is fucking annoying. Yeah, I didn't talk about that, but that did bother me too. Them announcing Cena as the GOAT.
Well, tell them when they're telling lies.
They might be telling lies.
Well, you guys are going to go ahead and get mad at me, but yeah, he is the greatest of all time. I mean, look at that bald spot.
Oh, yeah, well, we'll talk about that another time. That'll be a full-on other podcast. But in any case, I don't care how much Skylar agrees with it. It's the next sentence. Oh, that was cold. That was cold. Wow, that was the exact next sentence. Fuck you, Skylar. Counter is at 1.
I mean, if you know my love of John Cena, you know that's going to be what I do. Whatever.
I do. That was good. That really made me laugh. Editor, pat yourself on the back for 2.5 seconds. Also, before the match started, Corey was doing his pro-Miz shtick, and Michael Cole called him a mark. I shit you not, I almost fell out of my chair. I did not hear that, actually.
Michael Cole and Corey Graves are the greatest commentary table of all time. Change my mind.
We don't have the time for me to sit you down and talk to you about the commentator throughout history. We have more matches
are we
to
going
go
fuck you, Skylar 2 counter?
I'm moving on counter to the United States championship matchup between Rey Mysterio and Austin Theoristerio. And
what?
Exactly. Now, this matchup, I had no expectation going into it, and I thought it was solid, but it was kind of in a death spot.
I'm a little concerned about our boy Theory.
Me too, a little bit.
I mean, first things first, I will say this. I'm jealous of that athletic body. I wish I had started training at his age to be as good as he is physically.
I know, I still I have a 1-pack and a hairy 1-pack. And I would love to have abs guzzlers of those kinds. But alas, I do
Although
not.
I'm kind of glad that Rey Mysterio has the same body that I do right now.
Rey Mysterio doesn't look that bad. You know.
He got a little bit of a belly on him. That's a little pot.
Well, I gotta tell you, man, this LWO stuff is just not doing it for me. And they all wear PWO shirts, so it doesn't make any sense. And it just so yeah, I don't know what's going on with that whole group. And it was hot in Puerto Rico, but not so much in Pittsburgh.
Maybe they should stay there.
In Pittsburgh? I don't know, maybe. And,
no, I mean Puerto Rico.
Oh well, this was a cool down match, and it's a little disappointing that Theory is the cool down match, but I'm not necessarily surprised that this is the outcome that we got.
Me neither. I think there's an issue that's arisen with Austin Theory, and it's not a bad one, but it's one that's going to have to be addressed soon, which is the fact that he kind of feels like he's plateaued a bit.
He's not, I don't think, added anything or any depth to his persona after John Cena basically destroyed it.
That, and also it feels like his wrestling hasn't improved. Now, he's still a very good wrestler. He's still very talented in the ring, but it kind of feels like he's in a mid-card area, which is fine.
But can you put him any further up the card right now with the talent that's there, that they are trying to push?
No, and that's the thing with Austin Theory, is that if he's going to try and get to a higher level, we need to see more improvement. Granted, I don't think this was a bad match. I think he did a very good job. He was very good healing with Rey. The moves, for the most part, were pretty solid, all things considered.
That headlock big swing, which just like catapulted Rey.
And again, Rey Mysterio, again, is the greatest little big man in WWE history.
I was about to say, you want to talk about greatest of all time conversation. I think Rey Mysterio is getting to the point where he may start and just might eclipse El Santo as the greatest luchador of all time. I don't think it's that outlandish of a statement considering how synonymous he is with luchador masks. Across the world.
I will give you American luchador. The problem is that El Santo was so big in Mexico.
I know, it's a different era.
Had so many more people in it.
It's a different era. But the amount of people that Rey Mysterio has touched over an equal amount of time, basically, while only ever really exposing his face once for WCW and then it not actually hurting him at all. Long term.
Because we all magically forgot it.
Yeah, because he put the mask back on and it became the thing where he's still wrestling now. And he's still getting reactions. I mean, people still love Rey.
I think it helps that he's one of these legends that, like, doesn't cause trouble. He doesn't have any, like, concerns. He just goes out there and has the match.
And he's the only one who can make this style work for him.
That's reliability.
Yeah. And even amongst all the surgeries he's had, too. You know, because it's not like Rey hasn't had injuries derail him. Remember, we thought his career was over in 2013, like 10 years ago, when he was teaming with The Big Show and tore his knee every 5 months. And we thought he was done then, but then he went to Lucha Underground and came back, and now he's still wrestling. It's like, this man is, truthfully, I mean, it's different eras, and it is kind of an apples to oranges comparison, but I don't know, man. To me, Ray might just be the GOAT. Nobody was able to make his size and his moves and his style work the way that Ray did. And still does.
Which is partially why he has the U.S. title right now, is that this kind of feels like a token thank you for everything you've done for the business.
Which he should. Which he should be. I mean, I loved Ray doing the slide out of the ring and connecting with the DDT. I'm like, my God, he's still coming up with new shit.
Right, and he's done the baseball slide splash. He's done the baseball drop mid kick. The DDT thing is new. Like, we haven't seen Ray do that many times.
Yeah, and that was real clever. Although I do have to say, something that happened before that is when Ray was on the top rope and Austin Theory decided to go for the mask. But, like, why would you do that while you're off balance on the top rope? That didn't really seem to make any sense to me. But then Ray did that slide DDT, and, you know, we moved past it.
I'll also say that Ray has very good punches for a person that, again, is not thought of as being a striker.
Yeah, oh no, he's definitely thrown some punches. Ray had some good punches against Kurt Angle at SummerSlam 2002 that I remember were pretty intense. I don't know, and, you know, Ray is always, he's one of a kind, man. I did like that rolling drop kick to the rope that then Ray did like the rebound on the ropes and then hit the drop kick to Theory and they both went down and they both laid out for a little while. I thought that was a cool little spot. You know, this match was solid. It was just in a bad position for some. It was meant to mean more, which I don't think it really was. So I don't think.
No, this was the mid-card title of the mid part of the show, and that's fine. It didn't need to be anything higher than that.
Yeah, and that was it. And that was it. And it was solid, and Ray won, and Theory got all pouty faced, and that was it. A solid match. You can't be mad. Maybe a title match that would have been more appropriate on a SmackDown or a Raw, but still good. I have no complaints.
But here's the question, Sean.
Yes.
So Austin Theory has pretty much done all he can with the United States Championship, and I think it's probably best for him to move on from that.
Agreed.
There's no way in hell he's going for the Intercontinental title.
No.
Does it make sense for him to go for tag team, or does it make sense to have he's not in the world title picture? Like, that's not going to happen.
Well, I'll tell you this. Is it possible that we have answered the question that we had earlier with John Cena into what does he do? Because if Austin Theory worked this into going, look, I faced you and I won that match, and since then, nothing's happened with me. And you know why? Because you are a ruiner of careers, whether it's backstage or in front of the camera. You said things that you were not supposed to say. You made me humiliated. You made me look like a bitch, even when I beat you. I blame you for this. I blame you for my derailment. And whether you're here or whether you're not, you still seem to have an influence on the office. And so I'm going to kick your ass again, and they go into something in, I don't know, what's in October?
I mean, October will be Fastlane, and then there's Survivor Series.
So, I mean, just on the interim, if you want to get a match, I don't think a rematch between Cena and Theory is necessarily outside of the question, considering that Theory seems to have won and yet still ended up on the wrong end of that matchup.
Yeah, but then you risk the chance of having Theory and everyone get reminded why he is where he is.
Or he improves. It's like I understand your point, but this is the moment. Like, if a decision has to be made, he has to be making that decision against somebody, you know, the guy who exposed him in the first place. Prove that he was wrong about you. You know, and
okay, that's fair, I guess.
You know, I understand your point, because then if John Cena wins that match, then now we're really in a tough spot. I mean, they would go to 3 naturally, I would imagine, and the third match would be Survivor Series, but it's It's a thought. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's a thought.
Right. I just am concerned about Austin Theory because I don't know what he does at this point, and there is the possibility that he could flounder for a bit until he either re-changes his gimmick or gets better at the ring.
And, we don't know what kind of, what the office feels about him now. He was a Vince guy more than anybody else, and we've seen pretty definitively that Triple H does not have the same kind of faith, appropriately so, I think, in what Austin Theory is his ceiling is, and we're going to see if Austin Theory can break through that. But would you like to hear what JoshAgeddon had to say?
No, fuck him.
Okay. Santos Escobar fucking sucks. Just thought I would point that out real quick, even though he didn't do anything on this show. This was a TV
Just like Joshua.
He's editing. He could make mean faces at you, Skyler. Put one in for like 2 frames. This was a TV match.
I'm sorry, but the fact of the matter is that if you're going to bash me for John Cena, I'm going to bash you every chance I get, Joshua. Just know that.
Well, this was a TV match that made it on the pay-per-view, just like I said. But it was still enjoyable. Plenty of moves done by Ray and Austin were very fluid and slick. So good on them. There isn't a whole lot to say about this. It was a SmackDown match. What do you want from me, you sick fucks? Oh, and if they end up giving Santos the U.S. belt, I will happily join Sean on the U.S. title needs to die train, because fuck that shiznle. Next. Okay. So, we're moving on. And our next match, tag team titles on the line in the first time since forever. And we are now canceled. It is now Sami Zayn versus and Kevin Owens. Not Sami and Owens yet. We're going to get to that. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus Damian Priest and Yaboo Finn Balor. And this is a Steel City street fight. What did you think about this match, Skyler?
I have heartburn.
Indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea?
Pretty much. And that's what I felt about this match.
Well, this was about as overdrawn and gratuitous in spots and ridiculousness as I expected out of Owens and Zayn. I think I've kind of got the gist of what they like to do. And boy, did Kevin and Sami lose steam or what?
I hate to say it, but it's just paint by the numbers at this point. I don't even necessarily blame Kevin and Sami, although they do get the lion's share of the problem. My thing is that this was the peak of #bad formatting.
Yeah. And this went all over the place. This was almost like Stadium Stampede without the stadium. It was ridiculous. The whole thing was ridiculous. And the whole thing was just, I don't know. It was fun, but it was long, and I actually started enjoying it more later on in the match, but then, like, in the middle, I liked it. Beginning was, and the end was, but the middle was okay, is how I would describe this.
The problem with any wrestling match is that after a while, you can predict when certain things are going to happen, so on and so forth. But when it gets to these hardcore street fight matches, and specifically WWE, that predictability goes up by 10.
Oh, yeah. They just happened to do it all in this matchup.
Yeah, there are 2 things that they did differently, ironically, around Pittsburgh itself, that besides that, I just did not enjoy this.
Well, I knew this was going to be bad. I knew this was going to be not necessarily too great. When the football lad came before Michael Cole said anything about Kevin and Sami. They came out, Owens and Sami did, and the first thing out of Michael Cole's mouth was, "Hey, Chiefs Lions, check it out. Buy it. NFL Sunday ticket." And that was And then they're like, oh yeah, and here are our tag team champions. I was like, well, way to put the priorities in order, Cole.
Well, the NFL is the real money market king. We all know that.
Well, it's true. And then I really knew that this was going to be exactly what I thought it was when we started with my favorite thing in wrestling, a hockey fight. But don't worry, folks, that would be thematic.
I mean, they are Canadian, so what do you expect?
Yeah, they were Canadian, and yes, and then they wore their sworn rivals' jerseys. But in any case, so they do the hockey fight, and that's refreshing. They pumped in the "We Want Tables" chants to start, and then the crowd actually started doing them later. They got the
At least people got excited for the table.
Yeah. They got the kendo stick. They pulled out the terrible towels. Which,
the best part is that Joshua, in the middle of the show, was like, "What the fuck is that?" So I had to explain to him why the terrible towel matters.
Yeah, he doesn't football. But folks, we do, on the Super Jam Session podcast, there's going to be our predictions, Skylar's and mine, of the NFL season. It should be up, if I am a speedy individual of some sort, it'll be up either Tuesday or Wednesday of this week, which may or may not have already passed by the time this airs. So just stay tuned, folks. There's a lot coming at you. But in any case, they did the... there was some pretty intense stuff. I did like the Terry Funk shirt. I'm like, okay, cool. I didn't realize that would not be the only wardrobe change on the evening.
I agree, but, like, I'm glad that Kevin Owens paid tribute to the Funkster.
Me too, in more ways than one, actually. And then Damian Priest does a really nasty can shot, and they do a headshot with the trash can. Did you notice?
I noticed, but I'm kind of wondering, was this the point where Kevin Owens got busted?
No, I know exactly when, because I searched for it. I know when it happened. And I'm surprised that the person responsible did not get a potato or receipt as a result. But we'll get to it. I'll tell you about it when it happens. But let me tell you something, Sky. So, at SummerSlam, if you recall, thought that Rollins and Balor was the best match on the show. Do you remember this?
I wasn't there.
You're right. You weren't even there. It was Owen. But...
Yeah, but I remember you saying that, and I was just kind of like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, so... But here's something I mentioned during that matchup on the review that we did. And this is something I cannot unhear with Finn Balor specifically. Every time he winds up and hits any sort of strike or move whatsoever, he goes, "Ya boo! Ya boo! Ya boo! Ya boo!" And it's loud. And it is with every single shot. And it completely takes me out of the moment. And it just makes me laugh. I'm like, I don't feel threatened. I feel yelled at. Ya boo!
I would just like to point out that Joshua complains about Becky Lynch or John Cena being loud about their spots, but he doesn't complain about Finn Balor pulling a Tom and Jerry's soundbite.
Finn Balor has graduated from the Chris Jericho school of yelling. You know, because Jericho, he would do that too. He'd go, "Yike, clunk," and he would, like, all the time. You know, that was his deal, you know, because he wanted to sound like an action hero. And, you know, I guess that's just Finn Balor's way of doing it. But I will say this, though. The chair shot now, where they do the shot to the gut and they just lay there doing a bareback, you know, if you know what I mean. And, you know, they expose the back and then they just slap the chair onto the back. It just looks so stagey now. Especially because they just sit there and wait for them to do the chair shot onto the back. I don't know. It's like, I'm not into chair shots anymore, I guess.
I know it's one of those things that, like, they can't do. But it just reinforces the fact that, like, those headshots for so many years were so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, but it would be nice to be able to actually gimmick doing shots to the head again where you actually don't feel it at all. Because there was a way to do that, and then ECW kind of was just like, no, do it for real. But
Well, the problem is that now anybody who knows can see through the chair shot to the head.
yeah, sadly. But in any case, then we get this. Then we get this where they crawl out into the audience the first time, and they go and they're sprawling around a little bit, and then here comes Dominic, and this is where Owens got busted open. It was on the forearm or the elbow that Dominic hit right to the edge of the head of Kevin, and that bopped him good, and it just got him like just right to cut him open. Because then you could see the blood starting to pour from his head there, and then he tosses him over the top. And I'm sure Kevin had to have been swearing his ass off as he's putting that Mario Lemieux jersey on. He's getting the shit, which was so silly. Then this became campy at this point. When they're sitting there going, oh, we're going to be the champs. We're just going to completely turn our backs on our opponents because we're great for like 95 seconds so they could finish their clothing change, for fuck's sake. Come on. And then he turns around and there they are with the hockey sticks. And the crowd kind of popped. Yeah, what did you think about the hockey pandering that we got? Which, considering that the Penguins and the Canadiens are not friends.
This is the second year in a row where they do the September or October pay-per-view and they do pandering to the East Coast hockey team. Yes. Last year it was the Flyers with Gritty.
That's right. That's right.
That you guys hated it, but I'm like, okay, it's the Miz. It can't be fun humor, whatever. I'm cool with it. This time, I'm just like, did you have to make it part of the show in such an obvious way?
Yeah. I mean, it did actually add thematically, though, when Owens came down and he had a gusher on his head, though. Like, that did help, to be fair. But then...
I mean, yeah, but here's the thing, is that, like, it was really stupid, the fact that, okay, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn get thrown into equipment area. They just happen to have hockey gloves, a hockey stick, and the hockey jerseys.
Yeah, of two of the most notorious Penguins of all time, in Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby. It was like, wow, this was conveniently thrown over here.
And I would like to be a jersey snob for a second, if you would, please.
Please do.
Mario Lemieux never wore that version of the Penguins jersey. He retired way before that.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. Of course, but you know they do a whole bunch of reprints of jerseys, even the modern jerseys with the old names. I mean, the NFL does that too, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah,
but again, it's stupid, and also Michael Cole at this point with the worst blunder of the night.
Yeah. This was
the five-time Stanley Cup champion Pittsburgh Steelers.
And even Corey's like, Cole, it's the Penguins. And Cole's like, oh, right. Hockey. He was disgusted.
Which, by the way, Corey Graves is legitimately from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he was getting hot.
It's like, come on, Cole. Like, come on, man. And, oh, man. I was like, God damn it, Cole. And it just got cheesy. But then I found out, because what happened was I saw that Owens got juice as he came down, and I rewound and I waited and I looked for it. And it was Dom that got him on that charging elbow. And I don't know whether later on when Owens did that plancha, which he missed, but if any one of those punches leading up to that may or may not have been a receipt. Because it was a pretty nasty shot that Dom got on him. I don't think that was intentional.
Yes, but it did help add to the match.
It did. It did, but that's not... But when you're not expecting juice and then you get juice from somebody who you're not supposed to get juice from, sometimes that does not matter. You know, but in any case, they go back into the ring, they clean up Kevin Owens, and they do that chair plex onto Sami Zayn, and that was just nasty. And then they started getting... Then they did the second run in with the crowd. And there is one thing I did like about this. Is when Kevin Owens ran into the cameraman. You know, when they hit him.
Why?
Because, he just had to kind of throw him to the side. Because, I don't know, it just felt... I thought it added a little bit more to the, intensity of the matter. That this is just... It really has started to deteriorate. They're really hitting each other with even more than they were before. They're brawling all over the place. I don't know. For some reason, it added to it for me. I'm like, okay, this is where I really started, getting into it. I was like, okay, I'm more with it. And then Kevin Owens completely missed this swanton. Well, not completely. He did it safely. But man, did that look like that destroyed his coccyx.
Did the Hardys ever hit theirs?
Well, I want to say yes, but can I think of one off the top of my head?
I mean, to be fair, Kevin got Dominic. It's just he got him with his head.
Well, and also to be fair, Kevin's got a lot more weight on his caboose than either Jeff or Matt. So maybe that's why it looked more devastating, because he thumped down. But
yeah,
but it was I thought that was still good, but god damn, Kevin, that was ooh. That concerned me a little bit. I was like, that looked like that hurt.
It sure did.
Yeah. And then we get what's happened with Damian Priest since he's won this Money in the Bank, which he has got money in the overbooked.
Well, here's the thing. I know that we harp on the Bloodline for being overbooked matches bullshit. Judgment Day is giving them a run for their money.
Oh, yeah. Because they do this thing with the J.D. McDonough, and I don't think that even translated. I thought that pop-up powerbomb was pretty devastating, though.
And it's nice to see the announce table not break.
And then came my favorite part of the night. My favorite spot of the matchup, I should say. Not the favorite part of the night, but the favorite spot of the matchup. And that is that the person who gets the must-have pay-per-view barricade spot isn't anyone in the match. It's Rhea Ripley. I popped for that. I'm like, let's go. If anyone deserves that spot and that pop to pop somebody through the barricade, it's Rhea, especially with a match later on in the night. This was when I was getting... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yay, question mark?
Yay for me. Wish she was not with the buddy, but yay for me regardless. Yay for me platonically. But this is where I was like, this was fun. I was having fun at this point still. They kind of got me back into it towards the end. And then...
I would like to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Do Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens have no friends?
Well, they had Cody, but he wasn't coming up. Oh. Well, Cody was coming up next, and he was in the locker room getting his makeup done with Brandy? Question mark?
Okay, my point has been proven.
Well, seeing how they had a 6-man tag team match, 2 weeks ago on Raw? Wow.
I would just like to point out again the fact that Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens had Dominic Mysterio and JD McDonough and Rhea Ripley all interfere in their match, and no babyfaces came out to help them.
Well, Kevin Owens has a temper. Who'd want to help a giant man baby? I'm reaching here, Skylar, but then they do this finish, and this was odd, but fine. But it was odd. They do the... Sami Zayn finally hits after he hits a hula kick on Priest, and there's more of a schmoz, and Brawler almost hits him with the stomp, and then Sami Zayn pulls his shirt off in the last 2 seconds of this match. Like, really? Why bother? Haluva kick, like after all of that, now is going to be the time you take the shirt off. Kick to the face. He hits a Haluva kick. 1, 2. Dominic hits him with the briefcase. Finn Balor rolls over Sammy. 1, 2, 3. And the Judgment Day win the belts. I don't mind this outcome, but I would have preferred Dominic's interference in the other match over Dominic's interference in this match.
Yes, but the problem is that at the very least there were different types of interferences for obvious reasons.
Yes.
But I see what you mean.
It was weird. It's the right outcome, right? I don't think they should have kept these titles on Owens and Sammy. I don't think that at all. However, would this not have meant more if would it not have meant more if Rhea had just knocked Owens out of the equation? Sammy goes to hit the Haluva kick, and Priest is the one with his own briefcase, like to hit them, and then do his broken arrow deal and actually pin him proper. I don't know. It's maybe I'm overreading this situation. It's the right result. It was just a weird way to do it, in my opinion.
I agree. I also feel like at this point, when it comes to all this stuff, like, it was not a good shot with the briefcase. Like, it was a slide and, like, barely grazed them, so, like, it didn't actually look like it hurt.
True. I didn't think about that, but that is a good point.
Again, I do agree that Sammy and Kevin should not be a tag team long term. They're always meant to be a temporary team.
Yeah.
So it's good that the tag titles are off of them. I just don't like the fact that it's on Balor and Priest. Yes, they got the tag team gold, but it's going to be when they lose it, that's when the faction breaks up.
Right, which, I mean, this was kind of the last piece in the puzzle for them, though, and that's the way that they needed to proceed, especially with the way that Rhea was going to defend the title later in the night. It's just, this, to me, I don't mind it being on them, but now who do the Judgment Day face after them? Cody and Jay, which we'll talk about in a second.
Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods.
Oh, good gravy. Good gravy train. But at the
Chad
end of
Gable and Otis?
At the end of I prefer Chad Gable to do what he's actually doing with Gunther. Because it seems like that's making him look and feel more important again. So I want more of that.
I'm just kidding, by the way. Like, WWE's tag team division is still shallow as hell and still one of the worst divisions in wrestling.
Yeah, and I don't know what the remedy for it is. Like, I don't know who they face. And that's what actually kind of scares me, is that they're not going to defend those belts, like, at all. In the same way that Owens and Zayn didn't really defend those belts at all. Is this their first defense since WrestleMania?
I mean, they did have the defense against Roman and Solo.
Oh, right. Okay, yes. Thank you. I knew
but
that was
after
another
that,
one.
they didn't. Now, granted, injuries got in the middle of that.
That's true. That is true, but thankfully both of those were minor. But it's still, I am happy that the Judgment Day got Pyro, though. That did make me happy. I'm like, all right, they're viewing this faction seriously, definitely. And, you know, this was fun in parts, but there were a lot of not great parts in this as well.
Well, speaking of the not great parts of this, let's go to Joshua.
Man, salty boys. It's
specifically me and Joshua's notes. Whenever he's on notes, I always get angry at him.
Well, Joshua's notes is about to say something here that I'm going to say and sell just so he can be proven wrong in his first line. It's the Judgment Gay, which they are not, as far as I know, versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Yes, I put that in there on purpose because I wanted to see if Sean would sell it or not. Sell my shit, you beautiful bastard that I love so much. Not love enough, tell Andy. This was the second best match on the show, and an example of how to do a crazy brawl without crossing the line into being an absurd clown show that is literally too dumb to take seriously. Well, the jury might be in the penalty box on that. If you think, but I did think it was fun. If you think it's impossible to enjoy a match like this without jamming sharp objects into your hollow, empty skull, then this is the wrong podcast for you, Buckaroo. Now, the Buckaroos are on an indie show that we don't talk about. We like understandable, non-foolish spots that won't disfigure the dumb fuckers doing it. In other words, go cry me a river. Ha ha ha.
I will say this, like, this was a safe hardcore match, but that's also an indictment in that it's a safe hardcore match.
Yeah, even the most dangerous thing was former prison mate Dominic Mysterio. So, there you go, Dom. Keep adding cred. Also, Finn Balor threw down a yellow rag and stomped on it, and for some reason the crowd booed. I don't get it. I assume it's a football thing or something of that ilk. If you want to hear about football for some reason, check out an upcoming episode of... Okay, he did the plug that I did. I'm not selling that. I already sold that. Also, subscribe
Sell it again.
That's right. Also, more football. Super Jam session. Link may or may not be in the description. Actually, it's funny. He says, check out the upcoming episode of Super Jam session that may or may not be out at this point. He literally did the same promo I did. I'm not sure, but it will be there one day. He literally did the same promo. Oh, God, dude. That's how you know. That's how you know it's good quality stuff. Also, subscribe and share to save a ref today. Also, Kevin Owens got juiced and then did a very decent Jeff Hardy impersonation. No, he didn't get pulled over. He dove off a balcony and disintegrated his tailbone. I could see how some might get the two Hardyisms mixed up. The finish I thought was perfect, and I love that the Judgment Day is now covered in gold, even though the tag belts are silver. I did have that thought as well. We have all the gold, even though our gold isn't really gold. But we have all the gold.
I mean, silver is nice, too.
It is. We have the shiny belts. And I know these kinds
We have the shiny belts made of Velcro.
That's right. Oh, God, don't remind me. And I know these kinds of matches aren't for everyone. Fuck you, Skylar, too. But I had fun. And in hindsight, this should have been the main event. I don't know about that.
No, this could never be the main event.
I don't know about that. All right, well, now we move on to Grayson Waller. And as offensive, and here's the best part about this whole segment. There was somebody in Pittsburgh, in the front row, of some sort of Oriental descent. I don't know from where, but somewhere in Asia. And he was wearing a video game shirt. But not just a video game shirt, a very specific video game shirt that when I saw, my jaw hit the floor, and I want to give credit to this random Asian wearing this video game shirt. This game is a Super Nintendo game called The Illusion of Gaia. And if you can find it, JoshAgeddon, or I may send it to you, I would like you to put a 5-frame photo of what this shirt looks like. And that is a great game that is wildly underrated. And if you have the chance to find an emulator or a Super Nintendo to play it, I highly recommend it. Props to you, dude. That was a really obscure reference, and I got it. And I appreciate that.
The most obscure are deep cuts.
Yes, right. And I thought that we were putting the deep cuts in, but he had the deepest cut of all. And here comes Grayson Waller. And he does his spiel, and here comes Cody, who is still, man, he's still one of the most over dudes in pro wrestling right now. You cannot dispute that.
I don't know. L.A. Knight, yeah, may have disputing.
It's between these two right now. I don't think anyone's getting the reactions that Cody's getting, and nobody's getting the reactions L.A. Knight's getting.
Imagine if you put those two together in a tag team.
I wouldn't want to. That's. I feel like it would kind of dissolve. It would hurt both of them because they're both doing
Maybe
good
it's like a
stuff on their
one-time
own.
like tag team where they team up against the Judgment Day if they have the same issue.
Yeah, perhaps. That is definitely a thought. But Cody's still over like Rover. I do have to say, I did like this back and forth between Cody and Waller, where Cody's like, all right, so you're going to say some stuff. You're going to humiliate me. I'm going to get mad at you. We're going to have a little hoop-de-hoo. I hit you with the crossroads, and that's going to be what goes on, right? And that's kind of how these things work. And Grayson Waller, is that's what the fans want? And everyone, the fans are like, woo! Grayson, I was like, oh, no, that's not what I want. But that was, but the way...
you tell them what you want, what you really, really want. You tell them what you want, what you really, really want.
Well, it was apparently, Cody came out with the announcement, and the announcement was that, and I must admit, Sky, they got me on this one. I was not expecting this. Mainly because it's a tad confusing given the semi-brand split that we have, but on Raw now is main event Jey Uso. I don't hate this move. If the move is to, A, demonstrate that Jey Uso is over on his own, which I'd be all for. If they can prove and keep it up with Jey Uso, because he got a hell of a pop too. He's in the running as well. I did not expect the kind of reaction that he got from Pittsburgh.
Continue with the segment, because I'm going to have a hot take in a second.
Okay, well, you boiling us up? You're buttering us up, and then you're going to let us down. I'll tell you this, and then they do this whole thing. This I didn't really care for, the Grayson Waller going, it's my show, and it's Jey Uso, and blah, blah, blah. And of course, we all knew what was coming. Jey Uso basically was lined up there the whole time, just waiting to super kick his ass. And it was like, that was the only thing I didn't like, is that was so obvious. Waller was going to take that microphone, but I feel like they should have kicked him way before then. That was a little stagey, but I did like also the fact that Cody said, hope I don't regret this decision. If I'm bringing you over here, don't make me regret this. Knowing what he and Jey Uso have gone through. So I like the continuity there. Grayson Waller, I don't see the appeal. This was more about Cody Rhodes, and it was more about Jey Uso, and I'm interested. I mean, am I interested in Jey versus Jimmy? Not especially. But if this whole point is to see if Jey Uso can actually do things on his own and actually be a single star, then let's see him prove his worth.
First things first, Grayson Waller is Australian Miz.
Yes.
He is the third wheel to anybody's two-story.
Correct.
And that's kind of what he was here. He was just the schlub to get kicked in the face, which is fine. That's what the Miz got to be for a long time. And it got him 2 WWE Championship title reigns. So.
And he did it tonight.
Yeah.
Did the Miz.
My next thing. Jey Uso is a terrible rapper, and I hate this entrance theme that he has.
Agreed. But the people were with him.
I mean, yes, but the question is for how long?
Well,
I think this is going to go terribly because they're going to run out of things for Jey Uso to do on Monday Night Raw. I do not trust them to book Jey Uso outside of the Bloodline. And I could very easily see a scenario where he flops very easily.
Well, there's kind of a saying that I don't know if Roman coined it, or I don't think I'm coming up with it. I'm sure I heard it somewhere, but nobody's bigger than the Bloodline. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn were not bigger than the Bloodline angle. That was obvious by where they were positioned on this card tonight. Jey Uso is going to have to prove that he is bigger, or at least in some way at equal measure of the Bloodline as far as importance. The only one who has been that has been Cody. He's the only one who has felt more important or equally as important since facing Roman Reigns and leaving the Bloodline storyline for a little while. But pretty much everyone else has gone from being really important when they're in the sphere of the Bloodline angle and then rapidly descending in importance as soon as they are out of it. Can Jey Uso break that mold? I'm not sure either, truthfully. But this is his chance, and I think he should have this chance to see if he can. Because I think his chances are better than Jimmy's. I won't lie.
Okay, but what is Jey going to do?
Well, I assume there's going to be some sort of interaction with Jay and Cody because Cody introduced him. I don't know whether that means they're going to run afoul of, maybe the tag team champions. I said that teasing before, but like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some level of that. I wouldn't be surprised if Jay finds a way to face Seth Rollins at some point. But I don't know where that's going to go, and I don't think you're going to turn Jay heel now that he's, the fresh babyface on the block.
To cement it, and by the way, we are recording this on Labor Day, so there is a Monday Night Raw that's happening right now.
There is.
They started the show with Jey Uso hugging Sami Zayn.
Okay. Right, they've got that history.
Which again, now of course they did a little tease when Drew McIntyre walked by for his match, like a little tension between Jay and Drew. I guess what the plan is to have Jey Uso basically apologize to everybody he's ever feuded with or been a part of the bloodline against.
All right, well, maybe that'll be what sows the dissension between Sami and Kevin, is that Sami is hanging out with Jay and Sami believes Jay. And now, Kevin is getting upset and raging because Sami doesn't want to play anymore. And so Kevin's going to have to beat him to a pulp again.
So is this going to lead to a Sami Zayn and Jey Uso match versus Kevin Owens and Jimmy Uso?
It could. It could lead to a number of things. But here's the thing. I don't mind this. I don't mind it because now is the time for Jay to figure out if he can do it on his own or not. And this is something I think a lot of people have wanted or wanted to figure out to some degree, and whether they can even do it considering how synonymous they have been with each other and how similar they look to each other. But similarly,
we'll have to see what happens with the twin effect.
That's right. Well, would you like to hear what JoshAgeddon had to say, who is not a twin, but he has a brother who needs to look into the camera more when he cuts his promos? And would you like to hear what JoshAgeddon had to say about this match?
Not match, promo.
There was a match in it, as in the match was lit for the fire underneath the ass of Jey Uso to come and make his impression on Monday Night Raw. It's Cody Rhodes and Kangaroo Miz. I don't have much to say about this segment, as I'm not crazy about talking segments on a wrestling pay-per-view. But Waller did make me laugh with the joke about Cody in Pittsburgh being incapable of finishing a story. And Waller's post with a can of Pepsi saying someone should be fired since they attacked him fucking killed me. I didn't see that.
So basically, after the show, he put something on Twitter where basically he held a Pepsi can up to his face and said someone should be fired for this.
Wow. What a joke. I love Grayson Waller. Wow. Well, this is an unintended fuck you, Skyler, then. Because both, I think you and I agree that we are not big fans of this guy.
Who, Grayson Waller?
Yes.
I mean, Joshua said it. He is Australian Miz.
Yeah. And Jey Uso is on Raw, so now we have some Raw Usi to look forward to. Rub it, Raw dude. Hooray.
Gross.
Well, speaking of things that are the opposite of gross and are a 400 out of 10, it is the Women's Championship, the Women's World Heavyweight Championship?
Of the universe in perpetuity of all time.
Yeah, I can't. Anyway, it's the Women's World Heavyweight Championship. It's Rhea versus...
It's the one that Rhea Ripley has.
That's right. It's Rhea Ripley versus Raquel the Back Rack Rodriguez. Rhea Ripley is a 400 out of 10, I say again. Raquel Gonzalez Rodriguez, she was called both on commentary on this match. Thank you, Corey. Of course, we get Ball Flex Sam, or Ball Squeeze Sam Irvin, to come in and do the title announcements.
I'm glad that they kind of saved like the in-ring title announcements for the two main matches.
Yes, I do as well. What did you think overall about this match?
Raquel Rodriguez has a lot to prove because of all the women that they have on the roster, she's the one that has a lot of potential to break out But the problem was that, as I have said before, she kind of feels like female Kevin Nash in that she smiles and waves and is not a good wrestler.
Well, she's green. And she needed to prove that she could have a good match with Rhea Ripley. I mean, Rhea had to do her best to carry Raquel. Well, that's kind of the point I was going to make here. I actually really liked this match. However, you could tell who was... Raquel might be the back rack Rodriguez, but you could tell who was doing most of the heavy lifting. Was Rhea Ripley. I mean, she was bumping her ass off for Raquel. Some of the bumps that Rhea was taking, she was getting Dolph Ziggler levels of flopping around. And God bless her, she was trying her damnedest. It got to almost funny how much Rhea was bumping for her, but it was still framed decently. Little too much talking at the beginning for my flavor, but still okay.
Just out of curiosity, who is Rhea Ripley's gear specifically pay tribute to?
They said China?
And the answer is correct.
The answer is they said China. Yeah, so...
Yeah, and it was. She wore an outfit that was exactly something that China wore in 1999.
Yeah, can I say that Rhea Ripley wore it better?
I mean, you're going to say Rhea Ripley wears a lot of things better.
Yeah. Yeah, I had something to say, but I'm not going to say it. But anyway, I like how Rhea Ripley was taunting Raquel Rodriguez, and then she just lifts her into the fireman's carry, and you can hear Rhea go, "Oh shit!" That did make me laugh. And then she takes some powder.
I do want to say, here's the question. You know how at the end of the year we do the grapplies for best and worst, right?
Yes.
Is there anybody that is even close to Rhea Ripley on the women's side?
I don't...
That's kind of the point, right?
Yeah. I wish we could see her wrestle more. I mean, that's my only issue. I wish we could see her wrestle more.
And that's the thing, is that this match should have happened at SummerSlam, just like the Trish and Becky match.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just glad that Ronda Rousey's gone, so that way actually talented women can get time.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's why I want that match to stay on SummerSlam, because for the end of an era that SummerSlam match was, it was just so hilariously, justifiably bad. I was so excited for it. Anyway, but this match, if this match had been on SummerSlam, I actually think it would have gotten a better reaction than most of the other women's stuff on the show. But in any case, they did that big running knee. I mean, I'm skipping a lot because I was just enjoying watching this back and forth. The sad thing is the crowd was not as into this, I don't think, as... And we were talking about death spots. This also kind of ended up in a weird situation where the crowd was not as into this as I would have hoped. And I think a big part of it is that Raquel Rodriguez is not ready to be the babyface necessary to take on Rhea Ripley.
The other issue that they have with this particular matchup is that no way was Raquel going to beat Rhea Ripley.
True. Yeah, because they weren't going to take this belt off her at Payback. But I did think that there was something interesting about this, that even though Raquel is green, I do think that this had more of like a clunky feel that more resembled a struggle than it did it being clunky and not quite, not synchronized. It was clunky as opposed to unsynchronized. You know what I mean?
Earlier this year, when we did the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, I had made the comment that Raquel Rodriguez has no confidence in any of her moves, any of her strikes. She looks uncertain when she does things.
Yes.
She's a little bit more certain here. It's not 100%, but she feels more confident. it's not quite fluid and natural yet, but she's getting there.
She's getting there. She is getting there. But then Raquel does that weird power bomb that almost looked like Raquel just like almost was unable to keep Rhea in the air, and Rhea landed very awkwardly, I thought.
Was that the one where she basically got slingshotted into the ropes?
No, it was when she was slingshotted into the barricade.
Oh, that spot.
Yeah.
Because there was also a spot where, like, Raquel basically slingshotted Rhea into the ropes, and that didn't look good.
Yeah, there were a couple times where I think that there was that Raquel just Raquel just wasn't quite able to keep Rhea up in her arms, and but thankfully they were able to cover for that a few times fairly well. And here's my only problem with this. I would have preferred one Dominic interference being a finish or the other being a Dominic interference for the finish. I don't like both of them being Dominic interferences.
But would you have picked this one over the other one?
I would have picked this one over the other one because Dominic getting power bombed by Raquel is a satisfying little piece of heat to be taken off of Dom, you know, and then the odds wouldn't have been nearly as out of the favor of Owens and Sammy. And then, and then Rhea could have still won doing her Riptide and all of that. And I feel like that would have been a better ending for it. And I thought it was a better finish, all things considered. And it showed that she still needed Dom's help somewhat. You know, even though Dom just kind of got in there and didn't want anything of Raquel, but it was enough to distract Raquel. I thought that was fine. It was better chicken shit healing, which is what Dominic is. Him coming to the aid of and beating Kevin and Sammy, that isn't quite what Dominic should be. And then if he's going into a street fight and he's got no problem with that, but then he's scared of Raquel later, what sense does that make?
Well, I mean, to be fair, Raquel Rodriguez has more definition in her back than Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn have in their entire body.
That is a fair point. That is a very fair point. I cannot dispute that. But
I mean, when you have a 6-foot Latina woman staring you down with those back muscles,
I will give you that. I will give you that. That you may have a point there. But it's still.
And think about this for a second. Dominic Mysterio does come from a Latina family. He may have been hit by a Latina woman at some point.
Oh, I'm sure he has. I know he has because his mom slapped him.
So he's used to it.
Yeah, so but in any case, but I liked this finish. I just wish that this was the only one where Dom got involved.
I mean, that's fair. I will say this. I'm kind of... Even though Raquel did not win, this is good to get a match with Rhea Ripley. Just, again, to get more experience for the veteran.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the kind of match that Raquel needs to have. You know, and
but it's also kind of in the same vein of, like, are we going to the Austin Theory, she's kind of plateaued points?
I don't think so, because this was only her first opportunity at this. I don't think so. I think that there's just more opportunity for her to grow, but it's not going to necessarily be... Think about how long it took for Rhea to really break through to this point. So we're reviewing her as the veteran taking on... I mean, Rhea's always been very gifted, and she's still quite young, but it's... You know, she's now at a point, but it took, what? 3-4 years on the main roster?
I counter you with this. Rhea Ripley is 26 and has been doing this since she was 18. Raquel Rodriguez is 32 and has been doing this since she was about 27 or 28.
No, so she's got time to grow. She's got plenty of time.
Actually, she would have been 25. But again, the point is that, like, some people just pick up this business and pick up this sport naturally, and Rhea Ripley was one of those people.
True. I will give you that.
It's not even necessarily a fair comparison, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a different situation, but I do think that there is room for her to grow, and I think she is getting better. Every time I see her, she's getting a little bit better. Is she there yet? No. Is she there yet? No. But she's getting there. And these kind of matches help that out and help that endeavor. But like you said, Sky, was she going to win this? No, she was not. But she didn't have to.
By the way, I forgot something in the Austin Theory Rey Mysterio match. I wanted to get your feeling on.
All right, let's jump back real quick.
Corey Graves asked Michael Cole who Austin Theory reminded him of, and Michael Cole said, "He reminded me of a young Randy Orton."
Well,
in terms of like the ascent and how quickly they got to the main roster and started winning championships.
Well, the thing is that Orton had evolution to kind of grow and learn from, whereas Theory has kind of been on his own and trying to make it through on his own. And like working with Ray is great. I mean, think of the people that he's worked with. He's worked with Cena and Ray this year a few times. You know, so they're clearly giving him people to gain experience from. It's just sometimes it's a slower process than one would think, especially when the people were kind of in on Austin Theory.
But I also kind of bring this up back to the Raquel Rodriguez point. Yes, she's worked with Rhea Ripley, but who else is there for her to work with?
What brand is she on? SmackDown?
She's on Raw, and that's kind of the problem, is that yes, there's Rhea Ripley. It looks like Becky Lynch is about to go to NXT, which is interesting.
Odd, but okay.
I mean, it's gonna help. It's gonna help Tiffany Stratton, who is one of the NXT girls that I'm expecting to come up in the next year or so.
Sure.
So there.
Was it Raquel and Sonya Deville then face each other?
Well, so remember, Sonya has that torn ACL.
Oh yeah. Right. Who's
so
she with?
Raquel
Chelsea Green? Now?
Chelsea Green is with
Dewdrop.
Piper Niven.
Right, Piper Niven.
Piper Niven.
Right.
But again, the point I'm trying to make is that like there isn't enough top tier women. But again, the part of the problem is that they're spread across two company brands, and there's not enough top women for these girls to learn from. I'm glad that Raquel is there. I'm glad Rhea Ripley's there, but they don't really have anybody else. So we may not see Rhea Ripley wrestle for a little bit.
Well, and that's kind of an issue, but you know, I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing in the world, because it means more when she does wrestle. And truthfully, I don't mind Rhea Ripley only wrestling occasionally if that means she's taking care of her body and we get more years of Rhea Ripley.
Plus, it also makes her title matches more valuable, and also it does something very important. It doesn't overexpose her.
Yeah, and let's be real. Whose women's title feels more important right now? Io Sky's or Rhea Ripley's?
Rhea by a country mile.
Yeah. So, no offense to Io Sky, but yeah.
This is just a little thing, like a casual thing. I have people at work who we talk wrestling about, and their favorite person is Rhea Ripley. Casual people love Rhea.
Yeah, because she's incredible, and she looks incredible. And that damn Buddy Matthews, man. If only there was a way to. Would you like to hear what JoshAgeddon had to say about this match?
Sure, let's listen to the nonsense.
It's Rhea Bloody Nose Ripley versus Raquel Gonzalez Rodriguez Lopez Sanchez.
Oh yeah, I forgot that's not Rocket that Rhea Ripley did with her bloody nose.
I feel bad for Rhea. She's so great, maybe too great, and just like you said, Skylar, she has no one to work with, and it was apparent in this match. I mean, this wasn't bad, but Raquel's chances of winning were about as good as the chances of the indie company that is running promotions that has an idiot in charge running Chicago again. I guess you could say Rhea is all out of opponents. Ha, sorry, Sean, the joke was there and I had to step and all that goose shit because I can't help myself. Goose shit makes my feet feel good. Fuck you, Skylar 3.
JoshAgeddon, you're no longer allowed to have any Monster Energy drinks.
And yeah, I'm sure he's gonna abide by that. How are you gonna enforce that, Sky? You got to send drones
I will
to
go
his
to
house?
Kakalaki and I will take away all the Monster Energy drinks.
What, are you going to buy them all? How are you going to get them out of every convenience store?
No, I'm going to dump them in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, how are you going to get them out of the convenience stores? You going to steal all of them?
I have my ways.
The work in this match was solid, but there was no drama. Also, Raquel is fucking bland and boring. I get it, she has back muscles. We all do. Rhea won because of Dom. Who cares? Next. Apparently, he did not like...
I would like to see your back muscles, because I don't think you have any.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's technically, scientifically right. We do all have them. Some of them are smaller than others. Some of them are smaller than others. That's not a lie. You know, that's just don't blame the weak and frail for having petty opinions about the strong and mighty. And then we get John Cena in the bow tie and the blazer, just doing absolute shtick with the Judgment Day, who are like, ha ha ha, we've got the battle chair now. And Damian Priest cuts a good promo, and then Finn Balor's like, oh, let's go party in the Leprechaun Mobile. Har, 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 har. And they go to leave. And John Cena's like, oh, wow, boys. That was good. Let's go back to you. It was just silly. But that's what John did.
I'm glad you found it funny.
Well, it beats the alternative, which is getting angry about it. It's like, what... It's still WWE, for Christ's sakes. What do you expect?
I wish you would have had that wig from the Barbie movie.
Yeah, well, I didn't see it, because I have not seen it yet, but we've got a main event.
If you're going to go full camp, go full camp.
Well, we already went full camp with the Penguins jerseys, so I'm okay not going camp again. But we have exotic clothing to wear, because it is our main event. It is Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the World Heavyweight Championship. And I gotta tell you, man, this match I enjoyed quite a lot.
Did you now?
I did. How about you?
I don't know. This is hard. I can go either way on this match because there's a certain man from Japan who had a lot to prove, and he had a lot of naysayers, specifically us, that he needed to say wrong.
He did. He did. He had a chip on his shoulder, no doubt. Did he do it for you, Sky?
Yes and no. Like, I liked some of Nakamura's wrestling in this match. It looked tighter and more aggressive than it has been in the past. But then he had these moves that he does that just, I don't know. They look goofy, or they didn't look like they hit whatsoever, and they're just not it.
I mean, I feel like the problem with Nakamura is that we were willing to concede some of those things before, when he was really truly over in NXT and everyone was going crazy about him. But now that he's not, a lot more people are looking at his actual wrestling, and I think that that's starting to become a problem. You know, and it was one thing when all of that hype was by his side, but I will say this. This package that they did for Seth and Shinsuke Nakamura, I really enjoyed. If you're going to do Shinsuke Nakamura as a heel in a main event, you have to go full anime. And they went full anime, and I loved every second of it. He did a great menacing voice about and saying like words that would really, you know, feel you got the intensity and you got the intent. That was better than any American promo that he has ever tried to do. I loved this. This got me, I was instantly in for Shinsuke being the heel and actually on par with Seth because of that package. They still have a great video team.
And the great video team can hide some of the flaws that WWE's promos and storytelling can have.
That's right, because it was he came out as the anime villain. He wore Shang Tsung's robes, basically. And And the thing is, I loved Seth getting all mad and personal, about, in the package when, he took the glasses off and he was actually yelling into the camera. And I love that Seth Rollins. Why did he have to come out with the Mylar blanket?
The gold blanket?
I know, but why though? Do what your wife did, seeing how you're mad that he brought them up, and show up serious and show up game face on. Well,
that's the thing though, is that he did the goofy stuff for his entrance, but the second that the video package played and everything afterwards, he had game face on.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I would have loved him to just for that one moment not to wear the goofy outfit.
By the way, I will say this, I'm kind of glad and a little bit popped that the Great Muta was in attendance.
Yeah, nobody else popped, but I did. I thought that was cool. And nobody said a word. I thought it was actually sadly quiet from Pittsburgh when they showed him. But maybe that was just me. But
I think part of the issue is this new wrestling fans don't know history from Japan enough to pop for someone like the Great Muta.
That's true. That's a very good point. But then,
AKA WWE doing their best to whitewash
history. That's what they do best. But then we get Ball Squeezer Sam Irvin with the in-ring intros, and we get another Colonial tie-up after a little flabba-jabbling around. But this went a while. But I once again commend Seth Rollins for being on this streak of having different matches with different people, feel different, and have different tones, and still end up making me enjoy them as a result. Even if the stomp finish sometimes feels rather sudden, which sometimes makes the ends of the matches feel a little weird, and then once the people realize what happened, then they pop. But it almost doesn't matter because the match up to that point I thought was quite good. And to your point, Sky, Seth Rollins is a wizard. Seth Rollins is tremendous at what he does. I think kind of like Rhea and Raquel, Seth did a lot of the heavy lifting, and he's the one with the alleged bad back.
Which I'm glad that they worked a different type of style and injury angle into this, because usually it's the arm or it's the leg.
Yeah,
I like that they changed it up.
Yeah, and they really did, and I think that this actually lent its style a little bit more to Shinsuke Nakamura's knee strikes and some of those moves that he really tried that more are to his strong style fit to what he's been doing and what got him over to begin with, which was really doing a lot more of that ground and pound, but in that Japanese strong style fashion with the forearms into the back. And that worked for Shinsuke, I thought. Now, is it just me, or does Shinsuke look gauntier? Like he's lost weight?
What do you mean?
Like he's lost weight. And but almost in an unhealthy way. Maybe that's just age. I could be wrong, but I don't know. It looked like he was just, I don't want to say malnourished, but I don't know. Maybe it was me. And he wears that big surfer track jumpsuit, so it's hard to really tell what shape he's in physically.
It's just not the shape that he was in when he originally came to WWE, because before he didn't wrestle with a shirt on. Right. Now he's wrestling with the shirt on to hide obvious stuff.
Right. And, I think that Seth really did a good job of keeping his back consistently in play in this matchup and selling it for consistently different reasons, which was also nice. I loved that when, they, instead of doing the superplex into the Falcon Arrow spot, and my feelings about that, Seth changed course and they did a Frankensteiner instead. And that's what I'm talking about. It's like Seth is finding different things to do with different people in different scenarios that makes every single match feel fresh and look fresh. And if that has been Seth's whole point with this World's Championship, I am all about people recognizing Seth for his diversity.
Would you say it's kind of like a certain greatest there ever was, greatest there ever will be?
Well, I've said it before. You know, Seth combines the work and diversity of Brett with the showmanship of Shawn Michaels and without the attitude of Shawn Michaels, as far as I know. So he really is kind of the best of both of those worlds. And I am really coming to think that Seth Rollins is slowly but surely becoming my favorite wrestler in WWE. And I love Gunther for a completely different reason. And I love Rhea for a completely different reason. And I love Cody for a completely different reason. But if you're looking for my favorite wrestler right now, that would be Seth Rollins. And he's been getting a lot out of a little in a lot of different ways. And he even pulled out a Rainmaker. Not the Rainmaker, but a Rainmaker.
A baby maker.
Yes, and, well, he's already made a baby. And
watch him go make another one.
Well, he might. Well, if his back holds up. But here's the thing. They delivered. I thought that they delivered in match quality. I thought that they went back. I mean, I thought that the triangle was a little sloppy. I won't lie to you. But I genuinely...
The triangle was sloppy. I didn't like Shinsuke Nakamura's leg drop over the back of the neck any better than Becky Lynch's.
Yeah, also his good vibrations thing. I'm so over that. That doesn't even make any sense at this point. I'm like, what does that even do to somebody?
I mean, the problem is that once Steve Austin did the stomping a mud hole that didn't look good, everyone copied it.
Oh, it just jiggles the skin of your chest. It just titty jiggle. Ah, titty jiggle. That ought to hurt you. It's like, oh no, my titties. But I will say though, I did for a split second think that the triangle could do it, which would have been an actually surprising ending. But I thought if they were going to shock people with some sort of victory here, that would have been the place to do it. The landslide was pretty impressive. I thought that Seth's kick-out sell was more impressive because Seth was really starting
because of how close he made it look.
Yeah, well, how close he made it look and how much pain he looked like he was in doing it, which was great. And then we get, of course, Corey Graves going, "What do I have to do?" a second time. And then they go back and forth and they do more than, and then it ends with a counter from Nakamura. And then he goes to hit, I believe, a Kinshasa that Seth ducks, or I forget how Knux got into that situation to get the stomp.
So Nakamura hits the Kinshasa, but he hits it to the back of the head.
Right.
And it's kind of the thing where, like, it's not enough, so again, what do I have to do? Seth Rollins hits that pedigree, which looked good.
Yep. Yeah, and that was almost a desperation pedigree, and you could feel he was hurting from it.
Yeah, because, again, it was getting close to the end of the match. There was a roll-up that Seth Rollins tried to do, and then Nakamura rolled him up. They get out of it, and Nakamura just happens to be in the right position for Seth to go ahead and hit that stomp.
And that was it. And I love the fact that one stomp does it. I'm still a fan of protecting finishers, man. I'm sad to see that being the case for Nakamura, but at this point, are you really going to give Nakamura multiple kickouts of Seth's finish when you're really trying to establish Seth as a world's champion, even though Roman Reigns holds 3 world's titles currently?
Yes.
So I'm all for it. I was all for the one stomp, even though it's kind of fast. Once the people were in on it, they were in on it, and they were happy that Seth won. I was happy that Seth won. Good for Shinsuke to have the spot. Glad they made him an anime villain. A B show is exactly where you have this world title match. I've got no complaints.
I also have something that I kind of am a little bit pissed about. I know for a while we've had the whole thing of Roman Reigns being the world champion, right?
Yes.
I'm kind of pissed that it took the creation of a secondary world title in order to get this point where we can have good wrestling matches in the main event again for a world title.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like, I'm happy that we had this match. I'm happy under the circumstances it existed, but I'm not happy about the fact that we had to create a B world title, which, again, they're going to have to fight really hard to make that stigma not exist.
Well, I don't know if they'll ever do it, but I do think that Seth is the guy to do it, at least for now. And I've really been impressed with Seth this year. And I would say that I don't know if we do like I don't know if comeback wrestler of the year is really the most important, but he is a dark horse for me for wrestler of the year for the kind of effort that he's been putting in. He doesn't have the most momentum, but he's been putting in a lot of really good quality work throughout this entire year, and I am really proud of him for that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, something that they chose to do with their digital exclusives now is that they did have Nakamura attack Rollins after the match ended, basically attacking him in the aisleway and then taking him and throwing him into the electric board in the back.
Oh, no. So they are going to continue
I'm pretty sure
this.
They're going to continue this feud.
Okay. Well, if they can keep him as an anime villain, maybe there will be something more to it. We shall see.
I'm not opposed to Nakamura and Rollins having more matches, especially if it's like this one.
Exactly. Yeah, I would agree as well. And the fact that he got a main event at pay-per-view, I am happy for that too. Good for him. And would you like to hear what JoshAgeddon has to say?
Do I want to hear this?
Well, you're going to hear it. I'm glad.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm glad that the New World title got the main event. I'm glad Nakamura finally main evented a WWE pay-per-view. I'm glad that Seth got
has he never main evented a pay-per-view?
No. This was his first time. That's why Muda was there.
Fucking hell, WWE.
Yeah, this was the first time that he had ever main evented a pay-per-view. Well, because the last time he was in the world title picture, it was Ball Shot Express. And, yeah. I'm glad Nakamura finally... I'm glad Seth got a main event. But this felt like a mid-card match in the main event, while the Pittsburgh Street Fight felt like the main event in the middle of the show. Kind of. I understand where you're coming from with that. I do. Swap those matches and boom, the show would have been better. This was a good match, but it never really went above good like a main event should. No one believed that Shinsuke was going to win, so like with the previous match, there wasn't really any drama. I mean, Seth's selling of the back was good, and there was part near the end where it really started to pick up and the crowd was getting into it. And then it ended 2 minutes later out of nowhere. That's kind of what I meant. Again, this wasn't bad, but it could have been better and should have swapped place on the card with the tag title match. Man, we are just flowing the Department of Redundancy department on these notes. He said the same sentence like 3 times in that whole deal. But in any case, we are not a repetitious bunch by any means. We never repeat ourselves, Skylar. Ever.
Ever?
Ever, never, ever, never, ever, ever, never. But let's get to ratings before this podcast goes on forever. And
shall we read JoshAgeddon?
I was going to say, let's start with him first. This was another solid show by WWE. Nothing super crazy or psychosis or newsworthy, but a solid B show, and at the end of the day, that is all I ask for. My biggest critique, honestly, would be an adjustment in match order like I mentioned. Biggest surprise to me was the fact that Trish and Becky stole the show, even though it shouldn't be a surprise considering who the fuck was involved, but again, you gotta book them right. I give WWE Payback 2023 a solid 7 out of 10. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to throw a colored rag on the ground and stomp on it because apparently football fans don't like that. Till next time, gents, toodles, hugs, and kisses, and he did a whole bunch of X's and O's.
Save that for Andy, man. Save that for Andy. Lord knows that girl needs it.
Well, he doesn't give love the way he should, but that's another story for another time. But, Skylar, let's move on to you. What is your rating for the Payback?
Well, as I said, Payback 2023 is a B. And despite being a B, I still think it was a solid show. There wasn't a bad match on the card. There wasn't even a bad segment or a bad part. It's just, again, with WWE, you know what you're going to get sometimes because it's predictable and, bullshit.
True.
I think for what they did, they ended some feuds, continued some feuds, and even maybe started some feuds, which is all I can ask for with WWE in 2023. That intrigued me. And that's the biggest thing. You got to intrigue me. I'm not sure if I agree with Josh again on the whole WWE hasn't had a bad show yet this year, but I would be inclined to agree that there haven't been many low points.
Agreed.
So, and this was not a low point either, and I feel like it's deserving of a 7. And that's what I'm going to give it.
Yeah, it's weird because statistically, it would be interesting at the end of the year to just see what all of our ratings were for all of the shows that we reviewed and compare this year to some of the years prior that we've got and see what the batting average is. And I bet you that statistically they're averaging much better. And that is something that you cannot deny is something that at the very least we had hoped for once the Triple H administration had taken hold, at least temporarily, that the batting average would improve. Because some of those B pay-per-views under late-stage Vince were just awful. This was not awful.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, this was not awful. This was not even offensive by any means. I mean, it's a B pay-per-view, but this is exactly what a B pay-per-view should be. You've got matches that are quality. You've got some feuds that are ending, some intense moments, some star power on the show. You've got different things going on. It doesn't necessarily involve the top people, but it involves people that you still want to keep relevant and important. And that's all you can ask for in a B pay-per-view. Did any of these matches knock my socks off? Not particularly, no. But I did enjoy Seth Rollins and Shinsuke Nakamura. I did enjoy most of the matches on the show. At some point, I enjoyed something in pretty much everything. And that's been actually kind of common with WWE, so keep it up. If we get shows like this this is the average show that we can expect. I am not complaining. I am also giving it a 7 out of 10. So, and I also would like to note that even though Seth landed a great frog splash, and we had Ray and Dominic on the show, there was no exturbation on this show this evening.
Well, that was replaced with Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt tributes.
That's right. And you know what? I think we're going to end on just something that's really heartwarming for everybody. Folks, we're going to cut to a commercial break fast, and you'll see why in a second. Skylar, first of all, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
And we will see you folks right after this. But my last question to you, Skylar, is that for all of the matches and all of the fights and all of the brawls and all of the intensity of Payback, where were all the black people? We'll be right back.